On this week's full-time roundup, yet another team tops the Premier League. Girona continue their Cinderella season, and Bayern opened the door slightly. Plus, a trophy is awarded in Columbus, and we give you our best players of the week. Another episode of Full-Time Roundup starts right now. And welcome into another episode of Full-Time Roundup. I am Matt Gesslin, as always, joined by my good friend, co-host Daniel Brackett. Daniel, how are we doing? It's a really gross, dreary night here in the Queen City. It hasn't stopped raining, I don't think, since Friday afternoon. And luckily there was some footy to watch and kind of entertain us. But how are you feeling? Winter is in full effect, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that it's 65 degrees right now, or 60 degrees outside. Yeah, it's been a pretty shitty Charlotte weekend when it comes to the weather. The games I was watching as well, almost every single one was pouring rain, especially in England. So it seems like this is a common theme around, throughout the world, that just precipitation everywhere. But it was good. Got to rest up a little bit. Didn't really do much. So watched a lot of footy. So let's just say that. And I'm excited to discuss it with you today.
Yeah, we definitely watched a lot. We were texting back and forth across a number of games that we were both watching. So should be some good conversation here to start us off. Of course, we always focus in the league that we are dear and nearest to, which is the Premier League. And Daniel, like I said in the teaser, if you didn't hear that, glad you skipped those. There is a new team at the top of the Premier League. It feels like every weekend there is a new team going to top. And of course, let's not sell it short here. This is your team that's at the top of the table. How are you feeling now that Liverpool go top after a big win? Seemed like it was a little bit more difficult than it should have been against Palace, but as we said with Arsenal last weekend, champions win these type of games.
Yeah, it was definitely not the best game I've ever watched. I think Roy Hodgson actually had a pretty good game plan. He sat Chris Richards at defensive mid, and he really did a good job kind of protecting that middle of the fields and kind of blocking Darwin out of being effective. But, you know, we go down again, and we end up winning thanks to an Andre Ayew stupid double booking. I'll take it, though, because it completely changed the game. And our starting XI hasn't been the best in the last month or so, but I will give Klopp his flowers here. His in-game management and substitutions have been spot on for the last month. And over his tenure, that was one of the things I've always been pretty critical of Klopp. I'm not really critical of Klopp at all, but that's one thing I would change usually. And he brought on Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott. Both Curtis had an assist and Harvey had a goal. So that's really what you want from your kind of midfielders who are just riding the bench, trying to get an opportunity that they come up big in these big moments, especially being young as Harvey and Curtis is. And a win's a win. And thank you to the other teams that made that possible.
Yeah, you mentioned, the youngsters and the subs, of course. Harvey Elliott comes in, takes that ball down and turns upfield. And you also mentioned one of those instances where a tackle or a situation with cards completely changes the game. And this game flipped on its head immediately after it was Jordan Ayew. His brother is Andre, but Jordan's playing and then takes a silly, doesn't need to take down Harvey Elliott there. He's beyond him, and he's got support in defense that is going to go into. And like I said, flips the game. Mo Salah scores 90 seconds later after the red card. And then the pressure's on for Crystal Palace with about 15 minutes to go, down to 10 men. And Harvey Elliott puts a wonderful strike on it and short sides the keeper and wins it in tremendous fashion. So you love to see what Klopp is doing with these youngsters. Like you said, Curtis Jones, are easing him as well into it. And then, of course, you have, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who continues to kind of shine in that new role. A little bit kind of interesting how that's going to play out. We've seen it in the past where it doesn't necessarily work 100% of the time. And so is Klopp live and die by that, or does he only use that in select times? It's going to be interesting to see going forward, because we know how difficult Trent is at defending. So when those games matter, will that be a part of it? And again, you continue to talk about how slow starts for Liverpool, and yet here we are, week 16 in the Premier League, and there's that, team across the side of the that's sitting atop the table is what I was trying to get at.
There we go. There, you got it. Just real quick before we move on. That's, I think, 18 points now, points gained from lost positions. So that's quite a bit. And both, Arsenal and Liverpool keep doing this. So we'll see if that's going to bite them in the ass. But so far it's kind of worked out. I for my self-esteem and mental health, I'd rather not have to do this every single weekend, but whatever. But to get to the second place right now, Arsenal, Villa, 15 straight home wins. Round of applause. Congratulations. Not only did you beat City midweek, but then you go around and beat Arsenal. And it looked like Arsenal could have grabbed like a late stoppage time goal to save a point, and it just didn't work out for them. Both goalkeepers were pretty good, but especially Emi Martinez has been phenomenal this week. So shout out to him. And, this title race just keeps heating up.
Yeah, and you mentioned goalkeepers real quick before we jump into this one. Shout out to Allison as well in the Liverpool match, who made 2 tremendous saves to keep Liverpool in that. So
he did.
Great goaltending we've seen across the league this week. Of course, seen some poor goaltending that we'll get into later on. But you mentioned, Aston Villa get the 3 points, a huge week, getting 6 points against the arguably, the 2 best teams in the league. Although, of course, Liverpool sitting at the top, there could be, a case to be made. We've talked, you and I texted about that offline, but Villa go in, and of course at home, this place is a fortress now, 15 in a row. I think you saw a little bit though, Daniel, that, the toll it's taking on Villa the last couple games. They got a great start. 20 minutes in, the place was jumping. They had that energy. They were feeling it coming off the game against City. The supporters were getting them, riled up. They got that goal to kind of sustain that momentum that they were on, and then the crash kind of came a little bit later in the game. But you saw how relentless and how organized Unai Emery's team is defensively as well. And they were able to kind of just sit in, and it never really felt until the last few minutes, like you said, that Arsenal were going to crack that nut. There was opportunities, of course, because Arsenal has great talent, but they never felt like they were going to get that equalizer, and never felt like it was too much to be worried about. Again, the pressure was there, but the way defensively that Unai's team was set up, again, they are very, very impressive right now, and you have to take them for real. They're second place in the table at this point in the season, Daniel. We're not at the beginning stages. We're not at the end, of course, but there's still, you got to respect them for what they've done so far.
Absolutely. And we've seen teams just like Aston Villa, like a Newcastle or, a Brighton, and the wheels have kind of fell off as of late. And they're the only team that were kind of put in that bracket of like maybe they'll challenge for top 4 that have kind of stayed true this entire time. So super impressive. Unai's got to be, hounding them on the training pitch. Hey, don't look at the table. This is nothing right now. We could lose this in a heartbeat. So he's done a great job. He seems like a better manager than most people give him credit for. He's known as like a more tactician type of manager. But he seems like he's really gotten the players to buy in here, and they fight for him every single game. And you can see that on the field when they're just flying into tackles left and right. So it's really cool to see. And I'm happy for the Aston Villa fans, because they've kind of had a couple, probably like a decade now of tough football, and they kind of are fully back to where they once were. To kind of jump to another great team, Manchester City, get right game against Luton. Yeah. Luton do go up, which shout out to them for even getting a goal in this one. But once that second half came on, there was only one team winning that game. And, it could have been more. But Luton, their coach, man, he knows how to set a side up. And I've been very impressed with him this season.
Yeah, we mentioned just the uniqueness of playing at Kenilworth Road as well, which was always great to see. And they gave Arsenal all they could handle last match as well. And City, go down at the half, right at the half. And we were texting back and forth about it, and it felt like this game was never going to be 1-0. And of course, City found a way to get the 3 points, and just a testament to the squad. They could have easily kind of packed it in after going one down to a really undermanned team on the road, in a unique environment, and especially with the way that they've been playing and all the pressure that's been on them about the draws and the form of late, and to bounce back and get those 2 goals and get the 3 points, I think sets them up nicely, kind of rights the ship a little bit. You definitely don't want to drop points to Luton after everything that's happened at this point of the time. So it was a big result for City, Daniel, but this next one was probably one of the bigger results of the weekend for me here, with the way Spurs bounced back against Newcastle. Granted, a Newcastle team that is very banged up, but Spurs came out to play, and this one was vintage Ange ball all the way through and through.
Yeah, I had a feeling that they'd bounce back at least a little bit, just because Ange is a good man manager, and he'd probably want a response after that pretty bad game on Wednesday. But I didn't expect this. And we had some pretty weird results all around the world this weekend, which was nice because it's not like the favorites were kind of winning all around. But, Richarlison back in a big way. There's a lot of reports that he might be on his way out in January, and maybe this is the start of something nice for him where he can kind of stake his claim in the Spurs side. Newcastle, my buddy Max, who's a Spurs fan, kind of texted in our group chat and was like, hey, why do the rest keep talking about Newcastle's injury crisis? And I went to screenshot the amount of people that they have out, and Spurs actually had like the same number, which is kind of annoying of a cop-out for the commentators not to really, like, they kept saying how banged up Newcastle was. Well, both teams are pretty injured at the moment, so pretty lame excuse there, and they should probably do better about that. But, it's not about who you have injured. It's the next man up mentality, especially in the Premier League, and one team proved that and one team did not today.
Yeah, I do think it's a little I understand where you're coming from, and obviously there's a lot of players for both teams. Every team has injuries. You look at the roster though, and who is part of that, whether that's through suspension or injury. You're looking at arguably 5 starters plus Tonali, who's suspended for the betting incident for Newcastle. Now, hear me out.
Who's the starter? Who?
You had Callum Wilson came back today, which was helpful. Longstaff, Boatman out, Dan Burn out. You're not going to start Jamal Lascelles at some point at the time, especially with Sven Botman and Dan Burn back there. Almiron's been out for a while. Of course, the way Harvey Barnes, who you just signed from over the summer, he was out, and then again Tonali, and on top of that, you're playing such a difficult schedule, right? Spurs don't have Champions League football, or at this point they're out of the cup, I believe, so they don't have cup ball as well.
That's
so
fair.
There are things that play into it. You're looking at, Lewis Miley, a 17-year-old kid playing tons of minutes the last 3 or 4 games. The body kind of tears and wears on that at some point. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, they're both banged up. They're definitely both banged up. I think the more concerning thing is just, Spurs pushing the envelope and kind of testing where Newcastle were mentally and physically, and once they, the first, similar to Villa, once the 20 minutes were up for Newcastle, they were out of gas. They had some opportunities. Had they put those in, that could have been a completely different match early on. Especially, I believe it was Richarlison that had one early that could have changed the game, and then excuse me, not Richarlison, Isak, and then Spurs go down and score, and that flips the game on its head. And at the end of it, you saw a really aggressive, forward-thinking Spurs, who we know that they have the talent when they're positive and they have the lead and they can play for fun, and they're counterattacking, or they're possessing it. And they had 6 guys up in the attacking half when it was still 2-0 or 3-0. So they really wanted to get after it, and they were feeling it. You saw Ange on the sideline kind of pumping his fist and jumping around even on the 4th goal. So they were feeling it today. They were really into it. And Newcastle, again, you're just looking at how can they get healthy at a right time. And Daniel, I do want to ask one question for you from, of course, this is a big flip in the weekend. Who had the best weekend of those teams? Was it Villa beating Arsenal? Was it Liverpool going top, or Spurs kind of bouncing back and finding that form that we were expecting of them? Again, not too long ago, before this little mini streak, they were atop the table as well.
Personally, I just would say Liverpool, and not because I'm a Liverpool fan, but it's because it's the first time we're kind of top this year. And so you have another lead change. First it was Spurs, then it was Arsenal, and then City were kind of creeping up there, but Liverpool hasn't really gone top yet without 3 games or so. So I would say the biggest victory was definitely Liverpool winning, and then Arsenal dropping points and City dropping points this week as a whole. But Spurs getting that bounce back win when they looked like they were in free fall was definitely second.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Sorry. Villa's a big one too. Don't discredit that. Of course,
I guess
said that,
yeah, that's true.
They beat City and Arsenal this week. How, kind of look at them. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Liverpool going atop, Klopp is very familiar with where that is and how to kind of set his teams up from there. You'll be having the teams chasing, and there's a big one coming up for Liverpool on Sunday as well. That'll kind of set the bar for the next little stint here as we go into the festive fixture. So I'm with you. Anytime that you're atop the table looking at the rest of the league, that's a good place to be. And so, when you move atop, you got to give the nudge there as well a little bit.
No doubt. But I mean, if we're talking confidence wise, I would say Villa, just because.
Absolutely.
You completely you get past the measuring stick test, playing 2 of the best teams in the league, and you beat them both at home. So if I'm probably feeling the best if I'm Villa.
They will need a little bit of a break, of course. Not a break, I would say, but just they have a Europa Conference League match on Thursday, which you're kind of hoping that Unai doesn't put his best lineup out for. Then you have right after the break, you have Brentford, Sheffield. So not the worst. You got to win those games, of course, to stay top 4. That's the difficulty in the Premier League, right? Every game you have to win, so you can't kind of coast through anything there. But you would, expect Brentford and Sheffield a little easier, and then Manchester United, who's you never know what you're going to get, and Burnley to round out December. So tough little stretch here for Villa, but big confidence, like you said. And Daniel, there were some other surprising results in the Premier League this weekend. Manchester United, which we'll have to spend another day just unpacking what's going on there. They get absolutely blasted by Bournemouth, which very surprising at Old Trafford. The Bluebirds were out. There was ugly scenes for what, was a supposedly start to a good week for Eric Ten Hag, beating Chelsea on Wednesday. Fulham continued today with their blowout of having 10 goals in 2 games. And then Everton beat Chelsea. And the last but not least, Sheffield get a win on their docket as well. Which one surprised you the most of those 4?
I just think Fulham doing back-to-back 5-0 performances is unheard of, honestly. I wouldn't have seen that coming. I mean, 5-0 is a pretty big scoreline. That's like a City scoreline to do two times in a row. Not a Fulham, especially against a West Ham and a Forest, both not like 2 of the bottom teams either. So they didn't just do it against anybody. They did it against one of their, table rivals in a way. So I thought that was the most surprising. But when it comes to, a team that I'm concerned about, are we kind of losing faith here in Poch, or are you, it's still the project kind of
always got to bring it back to Chelsea, huh? I will say with you quickly,
I gotta hear it.
I will say with you quickly, though, Fulham were a big surprise. Marco Silva's team, you had high hopes for them earlier in the season. They couldn't find the net to save their life early, and of course that's reversing here. Maybe they blow all their goals on 2 games, but they get, they've made up for what they didn't get earlier in the season here. As far as Chelsea is concerned, you get a little bit concerned at this point, Daniel. I think there's always been talk. We tried to be as positive as we could. I'm not trying to get rid of Pochettino right away. I think there's no sense of creating any form of stability if you just keep changing the manager every 5 months. So you got to give him some time. But my biggest concern is the lack of desire and consistency on the team at this point. There's things that you can control, without talent being the deciding factor. And that's what is lacking right now, which is the concerning part. If this team was hustling and chasing after every ball and attacking and, high press in uniformity and kind of as a team, you can get away with some of the lack of skill or finishing because the rest of what they're doing is offsetting that. But to be outmanned and outrun and kind of late to or second best of 50-50 balls consistently is concerning. And we talked about the inconsistency of a good performance against City, a bad performance against United, a good performance against Brighton, poor performance against Newcastle. We're at this point in the season where that needs to change. It needs to be, exactly what you're going to get from Pochettino's team, and that's consistent effort and desire. And for me, that's not there, and that's the really concerning part. Again, the rest of everything is talent-wise. That can change. That needs to be addressed as a manager. But if the players aren't going to come in, week out and give you that 110%, that's even more. That's more alarming than how they're playing on the pitch, which is a disaster as well.
Speaking of another disaster, we switch over to Germany. Bayern get absolutely humbled by Eintracht.
This was surprising,
Frankfurt.
by the way.
Could not fathom the way Bayern Munich got outplayed. I mean, it wasn't even close. And I've seen Frankfurt a couple of times this season, and they played Dortmund off a pitch and got a draw probably like 2 months ago, and I was like, okay, this team's actually bounced back a little bit since the selling of Bawani and other key pieces like Lindstrom. But man, did they look good? And they got a very young team here, and the coach is, I don't even know who the Frankfurt coach is, but he deserves the manager of the month award after that, just one game.
Yeah, you texted me Bayern in all caps and some exclamation points, and I thought, oh, well, they must be up 5 or 6-0 already at this point. And I was surprised when I turned it or looked at it, and it was 3-0 or 2-0. Eintracht Frankfurt. There we go. And it was surprising, Daniel, but at the same time, we've seen this before from Bayern Munich in seasons past. They have a game like this where they just kind of walk in and expect to win because they're Bayern Munich, and that's exactly what happened here. They didn't put any real effort. They kind of walked through it saying, oh, this is an automatic win for us. And you saw it, and quickly they were down and they couldn't play catch up. We've talked about this defense in the past as well with how much improvement it needs. Bringing in some new guys hasn't really done the trick. It's still pretty leaky back there. So that's a concern going forward. But as a neutral, you're excited about games like this. How many can Bayern give you to make this a race? But again, we've seen this before. So, one of those blip in the radar and see what happens from there. But it is a little concerning that this is more than twice now already. We saw against Saarbrücken and a couple other times where they escaped, but this one was a real beatdown.
And there's a couple things of this performance I'm concerned with. By the way, it's Dino Topmuller is the Eintracht coach. So congrats to Dino. But, the non-use of Jamal Musiala is concerning for me if I'm a Bayern fan. Bayern aren't winning a lot of games convincingly, even if they are winning. I mean, they'll have the occasional rout, but for the most part, they've been less than convincing. You signed Min-Jae Kim, and he didn't help, like you mentioned, with new signings. So just a couple of many things, and I don't think Tuchel's well loved, among the camp anyways. So we could see that relationship turn sour like it has in the past with other clubs. But there's just Bayern and the board have to kind of look at themselves. And what I was thinking it was a big question mark in my head is they mentioned how they gave Neuer a new deal. And he's getting up there in age. And you got Aloni with Nubel at Stuttgart absolutely killing it. And he's in the prime of his career. And you just re-signed Ulreich and you signed Neuer. Are you going to sell the other goalkeeper in the summer for a big transfer fee? Why don't you just, part ways with Neuer when, even though it's probably not the best time to do it, and invest in youth? And it just seemed like they're not using the youth players as much as they should. And I don't know, maybe they'll have to get another manager like Xavi Alonso in there to kind of invest in the youth and not cling on to what the past has been.
The funny point of that is that we are talking about Bayern Munich and their goalkeeper situation. They
That's
are
true.
clearly the class of the cream. Class, oh boy,
Cream of the crop.
cream of the crop. Words
We
are
are
tough
struggling
today.
today.
We are
Yeah, it
struggling
is.
today with these
It
words.
is.
It's the weather. It's the weather. And you still expect them to win the league this year, even with all that stuff that you just mentioned. And it does happen to help when a team that is behind them. And we talked about this a couple times now, Daniel. The Bundesliga beats itself up. Stuttgart take off points from Bayer Leverkusen, although an interesting 1-1. Again, you kind of worry yourself long term if games like this impact the race enough, and you just get lucky that Bayern get destroyed on the same weekend. But you do kind of worry again. Like I said, teams need to be absolutely perfect year in year out against Bayern Munich. And any concern here with Xavi? And again, they don't lose. They still haven't lost in 2023. For those keeping track, I think that's 22 wins in a row now for this team, or 22 games without a loss. So, the train keeps on trucking for Bayer Leverkusen.
I'm not concerned. I think Stuttgart, if you're power ranking the best teams in Germany right now, they're 1 and 2. Stuttgart dominated the first half. Bayern Leverkusen dominated the second half. So it was pretty evenly fought. Both teams had it around 3 for an XG. So it could have been kind of a fireworks game, and it was still an enjoyable watch. But you want those chances to be put away. And Victor Boniface has the most shots with 70, out shooting the second closest by like 20. And so that conversion rate, even though he is scoring a lot of goals, is a little bit concerning because you want that efficiency rate up as much as possible. But if I'm both teams, I'm fairly happy with the result, and I'm more than happy that Bayern got kind of humbled and didn't lose too much ground on them.
Victor Boniface does have 4, I believe, Player of the Month awards, so let's just keep that in mind as
Rookie,
well.
right?
Rookie Player of the Month. Still, he's putting the ball.
But
He's still putting the ball on the net.
He's a baller, though. I will say.
He is a baller. He was a baller, and he has been balling. Same with Grassi for Stuttgart. Didn't get the goal today for them, but 2 really good youngsters in the Bundesliga. You mentioned a pretty interesting second half to watch, Daniel. The other game that we kept an eye on, and the big one in the Bundesliga this weekend, which was entertaining to watch from start to finish, just because of how craziness and lack of quality there was on both sides, was of course the RB Leipzig Borussia Dortmund game, the late game on Saturday. A back and forth crazy matchup that ended up having Leipzig with 10 or 11 versus 10. Mats Hummels gets a red card to kind of change the dynamic of that game 10 minutes in. Daniel, kind of what we expected here. Not really sure what to expect, and they both didn't disappoint at some points of the match.
I did tell you I wanted to pick Dortmund, and then I changed my mind because when I picked Dortmund, the opposite happened. So I was glad I at least was correct about my reverse jinx. You did teach me something when it came to the red card, especially when it was a penalty. I said, well, even if it is a penalty, that's still a penalty and a red card. But what is it, the double fault rule?
Double jeopardy rule.
Double jeopardy rule.
Yep.
So if you take someone out and it's a penalty, then usually you don't get a red card. The double whammy. So I actually didn't know that was a thing. So it was good to learn at that point. But yeah, I mean, credit to Dortmund. They kind of hung in there and they tied it up before half, and Leipzig continued to not be great in front of goal. They spurned a lot of chances, and I've seen I always forget his name. God, the Slovenian kid who came on. Please help me every single time. Sesko, he had a couple chances in the second half and he didn't put them away, and they could have been cruising honestly at the end, and they made it a little bit scrappier than it had to be. So both teams continue to be weird, but the red card kind of ruined this match a little bit for an equal match, I would say.
Yeah, it was surprising though. I texted you that even with the 10 men, Dortmund got a lot done in this one. They looked to be, they had their chances for sure. And obviously they get 2 goals and 1 late to make it really interesting at the end there. But it just felt like a game that RB Leipzig kind of didn't really want to, like you said, put away and dominate. And that seems to be the theme of RB Leipzig this year. And this was, again, a 4th versus 5th matchup. And now you worry about and Terzic and his time at Dortmund, how long that's going to come to an end or when that ends. Of course, the way the season ended last year, and currently sit 5th place with a pretty sizable gap to 4th and the top 4. So keep an eye on that space. No, not reporting anything here, but you do wonder how long he's going to last in Dortmund. But Daniel, the other side of the coin here is that we have a race as well in Spain. We mentioned the race that is unfolding in Germany, which is great to see, and a race that continues to just have twists and turns in La Liga. Girona is a Cinderella story of all Cinderella stories. You mentioned, and you revert back to Leicester City at some points. It's in this storyline and say, is this the same? Is this what's going to happen here? They take out Barcelona. Just keep in mind, for those of you that don't know the contextual inference of this, Girona is 97,000 people as a city. You can fit that inside the Camp Nou on a full night. So this is a tremendous story that is unfolding in La Liga, and they kind of put the hammer on Barcelona in this one in Barcelona.
They beat Barcelona with Barcelona light is kind of how I was thinking about it with Eric Garcia and
or the throwaways, right? The rejects.
The rejects. So every time I think of Girona, I think of the song that you probably knew from your era, My Girona. But yeah, no, I thought Barcelona were going to kind of take control of this match, and they ended up, squandering again. And Lewandowski, I mean, he did score, but good Lord, he keeps missing in front of the net. And the commentator even said, all right, well, it looks like him. The name on the back is correct, but the player I'm watching isn't Lewandowski. So maybe he's kind of run out of his magic. And that's like the main problem for Barcelona, in my opinion, right now, is they don't have a continuity on that front line of just consistent goal scoring, and it haunts them week in, week out. So Gundogan came up with the big goal to kind of put them back into this match. It wasn't, Lewandowski or, Ferran Torres or any of João Felix or any of them. So big setback for Barcelona. Especially when their compatriots, Real Madrid, drop points against Betis. That's less than ideal. But, hey, credit to Girona. They keep playing. They keep scoring goals. And Christian Stuani especially continues his flourishing form of December, November, of just absolutely banging in goals every single match as a power sub or super sub.
We mentioned Edin Terzic. I'm getting a little worried about Xavi as well here for Barca. There's been, of course, rumors and rumblings in the past couple months here of just him having lackluster performance and needing to deliver and really show. Looking at a team, Daniel, Girona versus Barcelona. Let's just, again, say that out loud. Barcelona, his roster is one of the best in the world talent-wise. And Girona, no disrespect to Girona, does not really sit in the same league when it comes to talent and money spent on roster. And that comes down to a little bit of what the manager does with that, right? You kind of, we've talked about it, De Zerbi in Premier League with Brighton, Unai Emery with Villa and the roster that they have there. We've even mentioned Eddie Howe at some points and other managers across, at Edin Terzic when he was younger, earlier in his career, Xavi Alonso and what he's doing at Leverkusen. And so you look at this roster of what Barcelona has and you expect more. You wonder if they're not getting the right. You're wondering if the manager has to kind of be a factor here. So for me, I'm getting a little worried. We talked about this before. Don't want to harp on it. They couldn't drop any more points and they continue to drop points. Keep in mind, it is only their second loss of the season in La Liga. So it's hard to kind of get too upset. But they, this was coming. The way that they were drawing teams and the way that they were playing in those games, you felt like this was coming. And now they really sit in a bad spot to fight for that title, even like you said, with Madrid dropping points. And now you kind of wonder where this team goes from here.
It's definitely getting to a simmer, his job. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that as the fixtures kind of heat up here. They do have a pretty easy schedule coming up. They play Valencia, Almeria, Las Palmas, and Osasuna. So not too bad coming up.
They're in fourth now, though, Daniel.
They're in fourth.
Madrid.
So,
and Madrid has a game in hand, too, so...
Less than ideal.
Atleti, at least. Atleti, yeah. It's less than ideal. Exactly. Speaking of Madrid, you mentioned it earlier as well, Daniel. Real Madrid share points with Betis. Jude Bellingham, though, gets on the score sheet again. Surprise, surprise here. But Betis fight back. They get a wonder strike of a goal in their mat and their point that they deserve thoroughly in that one. And then Real Sociedad get a big win here, Daniel. They now currently sit 5th and only 5 points back of Barcelona for that 4th spot. So things getting really tight here for 4th. Of course, Athletic Club, that game was abandoned. There was a fan that was unfortunately passed away in the stands. So condolences to the family there, of course. And so that, that game was abandoned, like I mentioned. But you look at kind of where Athletic Club, Real Sociedad, Betis, they're all right there, 29, 28, 26 points respectively, and on the verge of a 4th spot. Either one of them kind of stand out to you, or again, are we looking at really kind of our top 4 that we've already been talking about for the most of the season for La Liga?
I feel pretty good about it. It's really up to 5, 6, 7 really is the ones that probably will be, Real Sociedad, Athletic Club kind of fighting it out. So it'll be interesting, but there is kind of a points discrepancy there. So I don't know. I mean, Barcelona definitely got to, if they want to be top 3, top 2, they got some work to do. But this is kind of the most wide open title races we've had all across the league in a very long time, it feels. So
great. I love it.
This is great content for us. I love it. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. And as you mentioned, Atletico Madrid back to winning ways, 2-1. Wouldn't say it was convincing, but a win's a win.
Win's a win.
When you're playing, 2 games every single week, these kind of results will happen, and it's on you to kind of see it out, and that's what they did. So, I'm enjoying the La Liga race as of now.
Yeah, I'm enjoying all the leagues, and you mentioned Atleti, of course, as well. Their makeup game with Sevilla will be the week before Christmas, so they will be on the same amount of games played, and they're only a couple points back of Real Madrid at this point as well. So keep an eye out there. You're loving the races, like we said, even races that you would not expect to be close or close this time of year, which is great. And of course, Daniel, one that we've kept an eye on for this whole year is in Serie A, where Inter Milan continue to get the points. They do continue to have a pesky little friend behind them in Juventus who win ugly at Napoli. Not too surprising, though, that was going to be an ugly performance the way we've talked about Allegri ball this year.
No, it was not. They love to get a goal early and kind of sit back and pray that their eight-person block is enough, and then they can just lump the ball forward. So that's kind of how Allegri plays, and for the most part, it keeps working. I don't know how. It's not how I would choose to play and carry a 1-0 lead, but Napoli didn't really have any answers, and they're continuing to kind of struggle in front of the net. Osimhen is back, but he hasn't been back with a bang. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm sure the Napoli fans aren't exactly happy with how these last 2 performances have gone. So, I mean, their owner is down to, do whatever it takes for his team to do well. So maybe the new manager, Mazzaro, gets fired within the next couple months. That could be something that would not surprise me. But Inter continue to look like an absolute beast and be easily the best team in Serie A without a doubt. They absolutely dismantled Udinese. Wasn't even a game from probably the 25th minute on. And shout out to Pippo Inzaghi.
Yeah, you mentioned that they're clear the class of the league, 2 points atop against Juventus. Juventus and Inter starting to separate themselves a little bit, Daniel. AC Milan, who lose again, this time to Atalanta late. Atalanta taking the points. I think it was a dramatic back heel flick
so
to
nice.
win, just a golazo to do it. At that point in the game, and now you're looking a little bit, like I said, Daniel, a little bit of separation. AC Milan seem to have fallen off. We've talked about their inability to win big games this season. Of course, Christian Pulisic continues to deliver week in, week out, and which is great to see from a U.S. fan perspective. But where I feel like Milan are in a strange place. They have 5 points clear of the group. It is a group behind them. Daniel, there's Roma, Bologna, Napoli, Fiorentina, Atalanta, all within 3 points of each other for fourth place. AC Milan, their season's kind of in a strange place, right? They're kind of just floating along, and they have a big game midweek, of course, in Champions League, which they're kind of out of already. Realistically, where does this team go from here?
I don't think it's going to be with Pioli. I'll tell you that. I think he could be on his way out within the next couple of weeks. I'd be surprised if he wasn't, honestly, because they're kind of in free fall at the moment. And yes, they're missing Rafa Leao, but I think Rafa Leao has kind of carried this team for a while now, and that was kind of Pioli's magic, and the magic's run out. So I don't know who could come in and replace Pioli, but I think that change is imminent, especially when you lose in dramatic fashion with a bad red card and then that great goal. And shout out Luis Muriel with the wonder goal. The fans booed him actually as he came on, and he shoved
Good way to shut him up. Good way to shut him up.
Shut up real quick with an absolute golazo, and that's the second backheel goal we've seen with Raul Jimenez earlier this week. So some good goals have been scored the last couple of days, but we'll see kind of how that shapes up if AC Milan's going to shake things up, but they kind of need to if they want to have a shot at catching back up with Inter and Juventus here. Yeah,
you mentioned big goals as well, Daniel. There was a big one in France. Ronald Koulibaly scoring late as PSG needed a late winner against Nantes to take the win there. They do start to kind of give that separation in Ligue 1, like we've talked about, now 4 points clear of Nice, who do get, a big result as well to kind of keep within touch. Monaco beat Rennes, which I think we talked about on the prediction show. That was a throwaway game for me, but that, you still want to see it on the board and Monaco take care of business. Any thoughts on, again, pretty much kind of fighting for second here, right? PSG, we both, I think, agree are going to run away with this one now that they're ahead.
Yeah, Balogun continues to look great. He had 2 really, really nice assists this weekend, and Monaco got kind of a late red card to make this game a little interesting, and Rennes just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. But that shows their resolve and seeing out the points. Like we said, good teams get good results. So that's a big result for them. Rennes no slush, and they've been good as of late. So it was good for probably their confidence to show that they can still play really good football here, and they do have a shot because PSG were given trouble in the match they played, and they're kind of like Bayern, where they're not the team they usually are. So on any given day, some team can go out and surprise them.
Trouble is, of course, they are atop the table already. You don't want to give them, you want to kind of give yourself as much of a head start as you can with a team like PSG, which is unfortunate to see. It's still a tight league. We'll keep an eye on it. Another tight league, Daniel, is one that we keep an eye on is the Portuguese league. Porto catch up to both Benfica and Sporting. So now we have a fun race here as well. 4 teams, including Braga, who's 2 points behind. And so you're looking at Sporting, Porto, Benfica, and like I said, Braga, 4 teams within 2 points of each other. Yet another league that is just competitive. And sometimes, Portuguese league gets a bad rap. We've seen some things with the refs go down of late, but
it's really bad.
But still a fun league to watch every now and then.
No, it is. And if you're a kid or an adult who really likes the young players coming through, who's going to be the next big player, this is kind of the league you like to look at. That in the Eredivisie, Benfica and Sporting are known for their scouting and of young players and developing them into absolute superstars. So that's why I like the Portuguese league. You saw Enzo Fernandez kind of get that big buy, Goncalo Ramos as well, and then Sporting has some fantastic players. So just keep an eye out if you like to kind of see, young talent get a chance, and kind of less high stakes, I guess you could say. But to kind of recap it, finish off this recap or review, Columbus, they win the MLS Cup thanks to you picking LAFC. So thank you for that.
Yes, sure was. Thanks to me. Thanks to also our friend that was there, Daniel Bramlett, that was in the stands repping for the Crown as always. He drove up to Columbus, but yes, I definitely jinxed LAFC right away once I said that they were going to win. So apologies. I know you had a prop bet on that one. So apologies, I took that away from you.
Well, since you told me that, I completely hedged out, so I came out clean on that.
Smart.
Yeah, I had to do that.
Did you watch this one though, real quick?
I did actually. I watched majority of it, I'd say. So it was a good match. It was a good watch. Columbus went up 2, and then Bolonga made it interesting in the second half. So we'll see. The offseason is going to be interesting with MLS, as a lot of things are changing around the league with the incoming of Messi. Salary cap rules, DP rules, stuff like that. So that's going to be really fun to keep an eye out on in the future. But Columbus, well deserved. Their GM deserves a round of applause, as he is a serial winner now. Wilfred Nancy, first Black coach to win MLS. Congratulations to him. He's an absolutely fantastic manager, and he trusted the youth with a 22-year-old Aiden Morris and a 22-year-old Schulte as their goalkeeper. So Darlington Nagbe as well, serial winner. He wins everywhere he goes in the MLS. So very impressed.
Shout out to Columbus all around. You mentioned
they built a good roster.
And they built a good roster, and Darlington Nagbe 4 MLS Cups. What an absolute legend! And like you said, just congrats to that entire organization, the team around them. You mentioned MLS is going to be kind of wild. Stick around. We'll have some more coverage of some of that stuff coming forward. Some stuff that we'll announce here in the weeks to come. So some exciting things that will be part of the roundup here that we'll get out to you. But congrats again to the entire crew, pun intended, to the entire Columbus crew and that organization. On the other side of the break, though, Daniel, as always, we will have our players of the week as well as our XI of the week, which hopefully you guys have engaged with on Twitter. If not, you can follow us on Full-Time Roundup over on X. You can interact with us over there. Let us know who your XI of the week is, as well as anything that we missed as far as the recap or other storylines that you want us to talk about. Again, we'd love to interact with you guys. Again, that's a Full-Time Roundup over on X. Also, please download, subscribe, and like wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating. It goes a long way for the show. And like I said, on the other side of the break, we will give you our players of the week. So stick around. And welcome back to the Full-Time Roundup. As I mentioned before the break, Daniel, one of my, and I know we talk about this, but it just is one of my favorite segments because it makes it more fun to watch some of these games that we don't necessarily cover all the time. But our XI of the week, for those, again, that don't know what we're talking about, Daniel and I picked the best 11 players of the week that we think shined over the weekend. This is our selection. So again, if you do have any thoughts on these players or want to chime in and be part of it, you can do that over on Twitter or X, which the handle is at Full-Time Roundup, and engage with us over there. Let us know who you think, if anyone stood out, or just kind of if we missed anybody. For those of you that are new, we do all these picks together. So Daniel and I select them as a team here. We do a formation of a 3-4-3. We try and highlight as much of the players that shined, whether that's goals or assists, mostly stats. We know a lot of you guys like stats, but some guys just stand out so much that you have to include them on a player of the week team. And so we try and include as many of those as we can. So Daniel, I will take us through our defenders for this week, and then you can take us through the front line. We do try and change this up every now and then just so that we're not announcing the same position. So first for me, Daniel, is Trafford, the goaltender from Burnley, who absolutely kept Burnley in this one yesterday. They draw against Brighton and get a much-deserved point, but he made some fantastic saves that really just kind of stood on your head a little bit. Otherwise, this could have been much, much uglier. But a big point for Burnley, especially in the relegation battle. You get that point. Give me him as my goalkeeper of this week. A player that is probably new to most of you, new to us, and I'm going to definitely butcher this last name. I'm glad I took the harder names here. Adebayo from Fulham, who got a goal in one of the 5 goals that they got. Defender getting a goal. Add that man to the list. Udogie as well, who got a nice goal after a feed from Heung-min Son in the Spurs game today. He gets on the list here from defenders. And then Gatti as well, who got a late goal in that game for his squad. So Daniel, goals in the back. You always want goals in the back if you can get them.
Absolutely. And for midfield, Abdoulaye Doucouré for Everton, kind of a nice goal. I think he might have scored midweek.
He scored
as
midweek
well.
too. Yep.
He did.
Scored
Yep.
midweek,
So he's been in good goal scoring form as of late. Someone else as well, Scott McTominay, had a brace in the game-winning goal for Man United. So good for him.
Midweek brace, by the way.
Midweek brace, yes. Kubo for Real Sociedad had a goal and assist. Continues to be the best on that team week in, week out. And then Mbembe for Frankfurt, 2 goals against Bayern, PSG product. Has struggled with minutes, the season, but he was absolutely on fire against Bayern, probably trying to prove himself and, want to stake his claim, and he certainly did that. For the attackers, Richarlison, great performance. Salah had a goal and assist, kind of kept Liverpool in this match. And then Lacazette with a hat-trick, a much-needed hat-trick as Lyon finally get a win, and boy, did they need that.
They did.
They've been expertly bad, or potentially bad. I don't even know. But
both work.
I guess, yeah. My brain's all over the place. But for player of the week, I have Aubameyang. 3 goals in 2 games this week. Not a bad performance. And Marseille need him to keep bringing in these goals if they want to get Champions League spot. So they need him pretty bad.
Yeah, I had Harvey Elliott. Came on, made an impact right away for Liverpool and put them atop the table. Basically drew the red card with his play and then got the goal, the game-winning goal. So player of the week for me was Harvey Elliott.
And then for young player of the week, I have Hinchelwood, the 18-year-old English player from Brighton. He played right back. He's a midfielder, but he played right back midweek and scored. And he almost got a couple game winners for Brighton against Burnley. But we love young talent kind of shining in some of the best leagues around Europe. And he's kind of showed De Zerbi that he can be, can play everywhere. And De Zerbi loves that. So shout out to him.
Yeah, I could have had Harvey Elliott here as well for young player of the week. Just he is one of those young players. But I had Wilson Odobert from Burnley. I got a goal. Maybe a little luck with the deflection, but even throughout the rest of the game, he looked fantastic. 19-year-old French national, really shined and got the goal in that match as well. So there you have it, folks. XI of the week, young player, and player of the week that we give you every week. Again, you can interact with us over on X at Fulltime Roundup and let us know who we missed. There's just so much to cover. We can't get it all. Leagues in Latin America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa. We can't cover it all. So we try to do the best we can for you. Let us know. Again, if you want to follow and interact with us, that's Fulltime Roundup over on X. You can also interact directly with Daniel at Liverpool CLTFC or myself at Life of Gesslin over on X as well. Of course, please download, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating. And Daniel, I know it's a crazy time. We'll be back on Thursday for the preview show. Maybe another special show to announce for you guys as well on Thursday. So stick around for that. We're pretty excited about what we have coming for you guys. And then I know it's an exciting time just as a whole with festive fixtures around the corner. So we'll see you guys on Thursday and have a great week.